Welcome back to Titan's Legacy. Previously, we laid the foundation of Rockefeller's mindset. But today, we go deeper into his ruthless strategies on risk and borrowing. If you are ready to master the game of money, let's unlock the 13th letter. There is no such thing as a free lunch. March 17, 1911. Dear John, I have noticed articles accusing me of being stingy and saying that I don't donate enough, that money is nothing. I've had enough of being scolded by those ignorant reporters. There is only one way for me to respond to them. I stay silent, and I do not make excuses, no matter what they say, because I know what I think. I firmly believe that I am on the right side. Everyone needs to go their own way. The important thing is to have a clear conscience. There's a story that might explain why I pay little attention to the reasons why they beg me to pay for their personal problems. The story goes like this: there was a farmer who raised a few pigs in a barn. One day, the owner forgot to close the gate and gave the pigs a chance to escape. Over several generations, the pigs became so aggressive, they began to threaten passers-by. Several experienced hunters heard about this and wanted to kill them for the people. However, these pigs were cunning and never fooled. John, when the pigs become independent, they become tough and smart. One day, an old man drove a donkey pulling a two-wheeled cart with a lot of wood and grain into a village where the wild boars threatened the people. The residents were very curious, so they stepped forward and asked the old man, "Where are you from, and what are you going to do?" The old man told them, "I'll help you catch wild boars." When the villagers heard this, they laughed at him. "Don't be funny. How can you do something that even a good hunter can't do?" However, 2 months later, the old man returned and told the villagers that the wild boars had been kept in the fence by him on the top of a mountain. The villagers were surprised again and asked the old man, "Really? It's unbelievable. How did you catch them?" The old man explained, "First, I was looking for a place where wild boars often come out to eat. Then, I put some grain in the middle of the open space as bait for the trap. The pigs were startled at first, but finally ran over curiously and smelled the scent of grain. Soon, an old wild boar took the first bite, and the others followed. Then I knew for sure I would catch them. The next day, I added a little more grain and put up a board a few feet away. The boards temporarily scared them like a ghost, but the free lunch was so tempting that they soon ran back and ate again. At that time, the boars didn't know they were mine. All I had to do then was put up a few more boards around the grain every day until my trap was complete. Then I dug a hole and set up stakes underneath. Every time I added something, they stayed away for a while, but ended up coming back for the free lunch. The fence was made, and the trapdoor was ready. Well, the habit of getting things for nothing made them walk into the fence without any worries. At this time, I suddenly set the trap, and the pigs who ate lunch for free were easily caught by me. The moral of the story is simple: when an animal depends on humans for food, its wit will be taken away, and then it will be in trouble. The same applies to humans. If you want to injure a person, just give him a pair of crutches and wait for a few months. In other words, if you give a person a free lunch for a certain period of time, he will form the habit of getting something for nothing. Don't forget that everyone needs to be taken care of as soon as they are in the womb. Yes, I have always encouraged you to help others, but like I always tell you, if you give a man a fish, you can only support him for a day. But if you can teach him how to fish, you support him for a lifetime. This old saying about fishing is very meaningful. In my opinion, financial sponsorship is the wrong form of help. It can make a person lose their motivation, diligence, and become lazy, inattentive, and irresponsible. More importantly, when you donate to a person, you deny his dignity, and when you deny his dignity, you rob him of his destiny, which is extremely immoral in my opinion. As a rich person, I have a responsibility to be a messenger for the benefit of humanity, not an initiator of creating lazy people. Once someone forms a good or bad habit, that habit will always follow them. The habit of free lunch will not make life easy for a man, it will only make him lose the chance to win. And hard work is the only reliable way out. Work is the price we have to pay for enjoying success. Wealth and happiness can only be obtained by hard work. A long time ago, there was a wise old king who wanted to write a book of wisdom for future generations. One day, the old king summoned his wise courtiers and said, "A mind without wisdom is like a lantern without a candle. I want you to compile a book of wisdom of all time to illuminate the future of our descendants." After these wise men took his command and left, they worked for a long time and finally completed a magnificent work of 12 volumes, and proudly declared, "Your Majesty, this is a book of wisdom of the ages." The old king looked at it and said, "Gentlemen, I'm sure that this is the crystallization of the wisdom of the ages. However, it is too thick, and I don't think people will read it. Condense it." After several deletions, his courtiers completed just one volume. However, the old king still thought it was too thick and ordered them to condense it again. These smart people condensed a book into a chapter, then a page, and a paragraph, and finally a sentence. When the wise old king saw this sentence, he seemed very proud. "Gentlemen," he said, "this is really the wisdom of all time. And once people everywhere know this truth, most of our problems can be solved." The sentence was, "There is no such thing as a free lunch." The first and last chapter of the Book of Wisdom is that there is no free lunch in the world. If people know that moving forward and working hard, most people will achieve something and make the world a better place. And those who eat lunch for free will sooner or later pay the price. If a man lives, he must create something in himself and the outside world that can make life and death a little dignified. Love, your father. The 14th letter, Be a Foolish Wise Man. October 9, 1890. Dear John, tomorrow, I'm going back to my hometown of Cleveland to deal with some personal family matters. I hope you can take care of some things for me in the meantime. But I remind you that if you encounter anything difficult or unsure, you need to ask Mr. Gates for more advice and consultation. Mr. Gates is my best assistant. He is an honest, straightforward, dedicated, and wise person. He always helps me make wise choices. I trust him a lot, and I believe he will be of great help to you. The premise is that you have to respect him. Son, I know you are an excellent graduate of Brown University. Your knowledge of economics and sociology is excellent. However, you should be aware that knowledge is initially empty, and nothing will happen unless knowledge is put into action. Moreover, the knowledge in textbooks is almost all compiled in the ivory tower by those knowledgeable craftsmen, and it is difficult for you to solve practical problems. I hope you can get rid of the dependence on knowledge and learning, which is the key to your smooth journey in life. You need to know that knowledge itself is not very good. Knowledge must be used to be effective. To become a person who can use knowledge, you must first become a person who is able to practice. So, where does the ability to practice come from? It seems to me that it is hidden in suffering. My experience has taught me that walking the hard road, a road full of hardships, misfortunes, failures, and difficulties, not only builds our strong character, but also develops the practical ability on which we rely to achieve great things. Those who climb mountains and wade streams in hardship know how to find ways and means to save themselves. Enduring hardships is one of my beliefs about success. Maybe you've been mocking me, thinking all the time that there's nothing more foolish than wanting to suffer. Do not. Those who do not experience misfortune are unhappy. What you get from hardship is to build your career on a solid foundation, not quicksand. People must have foresight, and only by enduring long-term hardship can they reap long-term benefits. I believe you have discovered that since you came to work with me, I have not given you any important work. But that doesn't mean I doubt your abilities. I just hope you are good at the little things. Doing small things well is the cornerstone for accomplishing big things. If you are high above the ground from the beginning, you will not be able to care about the feelings of your subordinates, and you will not be able to truly make use of others. In order to survive and create achievements in this world, you must rely on human resources, the strength of others. But you must start with small things, so that you can understand the feeling of being a subordinate. When you go to a higher position one day, you will know how to make them contribute all their enthusiasm for work. Son, there are only two types of smart people in the world. One is to use their own smarts, such as artists, scholars, and actors. The other is to use other people's smarts, such as managers and leaders. The latter type of people need a special ability, the ability to capture the heart. But many leaders are smart idiots, who think that in order to capture people's hearts, they have to rely on top-down commands. In my opinion, this is ineffective and also loses many talented people. You know, everyone is very sensitive to being despised, and being despised will lose their motivation. Such leaders only make subordinates incompetent. When a pig is praised well, it can climb a tree. Managers, leaders, or people who are good at driving others are always generous, and they know the art of valuing and praising others. Leaders, who show deep feelings for others will eventually win and gain more respect from their subordinates. People without knowledge are useless in the end. But those with knowledge are likely to become slaves of knowledge. Everyone needs to know that all knowledge will be transformed into prejudices. The result is a one-sided conservative mentality that says, I know, I understand. With the feeling of I know, I understand, you will lack interest in learning. If there is no interest, the motivation to move forward will be lost, and all that will be waiting for you will be boredom. However, driven by pride and honor, many ignorant people always have difficulty saying they don't know, and that is a shame. This kind of person will never understand the great adage, every opportunity to learn something you don't know will become a turning point in your life. Those who pretend to be wise are stupid, and those who know how to pretend to be stupid are really smart. To this day, I still clearly remember the scene of pretending to be stupid. At that time, I was thinking about how to borrow $15,000. I thought about this problem while walking on the street. It's interesting to say that just when I was thinking about borrowing money, a banker stopped me. He asked me in a low voice in the carriage, "Do you want to borrow $50,000, Mr. Rockefeller?" Was I lucky? I couldn't believe my ears. But at that moment, I didn't show the slightest urgency. I looked at the other person's face and slowly said to him, "Can you give me 24 hours to think about it?" I reached a loan agreement with him on terms favorable to me. Playing stupid has many benefits for you. The meaning of pretending to be stupid is to lower your profile and become humble. In other words, hide your intelligence. The wiser a person is, the more foolish he must pretend to be, because it is often said, the riper the rice, the droopier it becomes. Son, practice that habit. Now start pretending to be silly. You always want your wishes to come true, but don't show it on your face. Let me think is the motto I follow in business. I always have the habit of thinking and judging calmly before making decisions. But once I make a decision, I will make it without hesitation. I believe you can do it too. Love, your father. The 15th letter, wealth is a byproduct of hard work. January 25, 1907. Dear John, I am very pleased to receive your letter. There are two sentences in your letter that I really admire. One is that, if you are not a winner, then you are giving up on yourself, and the other is, hard work makes a noble man. These two sentences are my uncompromising life motto. If I weren't humble, I would be willing to say that it is the epitome of my life. Those malicious newspapers often describe me as a talented money-making machine when talking about the huge fortune I have created. The reality is that they know almost nothing about me, and they lack a deep understanding of history. As immigrants, it is our nature to hope and work hard. When I was a child, my mother implanted the virtues of frugality, self-reliance, hard work, reliability, and a relentless entrepreneurial spirit in my bones. I sincerely believe in these virtues and regard them as great pillars of success. Today, those great beliefs still flow in my blood, and all of this created a ladder for me to climb and take me to the pinnacle of wealth. Of course, the war that changed the fate and lives of the American people benefited me greatly. Honestly, it made me a business giant that shocked and terrified the business world. Yes, the Civil War gave people unprecedented business opportunities. It turned me into a rich man ahead of time, provided capital for me to win the arena of seizing the opportunity launched after the war, and even made my fortune pile up later. However, opportunity is like time. Why can I seize the opportunity to become rich, but many people miss the opportunity and have to live in poverty? Is it really because I am greedy, as my detractors say? Do not. Be hardworking. Opportunities are only reserved for hardworking people. When I was young, I believed in one rule of success: wealth is an unintentional byproduct of hard work. Achieving each goal comes from diligent thinking, diligent action, and the same is true of realizing the dream of getting rich. I really appreciate the saying, diligence makes aristocrats. It is a motto that I will respect forever. John, in this infinitely changing world, there are no eternal nobles and no eternal poor. As you know, when I was young, I wore ragged clothes and was so poor that I had to ask good people for help. But today, I have a vast empire of wealth, and I have poured a huge amount of money into charity. The ups and downs of life are as endless as the waves. People from humble backgrounds and poor families, through hard work, persistence, pursuit, and wisdom, can also become famous, stand out, and become new aristocrats. All honor must be created by oneself, and only that honor can last long. But in our society today, children of rich families are in a dilemma. Unfortunately, many of them lack the enterprising spirit and live in a vain and wasteful way. So, even though they are born rich, they die in poverty. Therefore, you must perfect yourself in the stormy battle of life to surpass yourself, enjoy the joy of success, and win the respect of society. You can only achieve it with your own hands. Tell them that the laurel wreath of honor will be placed on the heads of those who dare to explore lands outside the safe circle. Tell them that diligence is for themselves, not for others, and they are the biggest beneficiaries of diligence. When I was a child, I firmly believed that, without hard work, there will be no fruitful harvest. As a son of the poor, there is no other way than to achieve success, wealth, and dignity through hard work. When I was in school, I was not a smart student, but I didn't want to be inferior to my friends, so I could only prepare my homework diligently and persistently. When I was 10 years old, I knew how to work as much as I could. Chopping wood, milking, fetching water, farming, I did everything and never gave up. It was the years of hardship in my homeland that forged my will, helping me to endure the difficulties of starting a business in the future. It also made me more persistent and built strong confidence in me. I know that the reason why I have always been able to face adversity in the future, including success, is largely due to the confidence I have built up since I was a child. Diligence can cultivate people's qualities, and it can also cultivate people's abilities. When I was hired by Hewitt & Tuttle, I gained a reputation as a young bookkeeper of extraordinary ability and excellence. During those days, I could say I worked all day and night. At that time, my employer told me that I would succeed because of my extraordinary perseverance. Although I did not know what the future would be, one thing I believe is that as long as I do something with my heart, I will never fail. Today, even though I am nearly 70 years old, I am still fighting in the business world, because I know the quickest way to end my life is to do nothing. John, my fame and huge wealth today are the result of my creative efforts, which are much more than those of ordinary people. I was originally an ordinary person, without a laurel crown on my head, but with strong perseverance, I worked hard and finally became famous. My reputation is not a fake name, but a crown molded by blood and sweat. A little shallow jealousy and ignorance are unfair to me. Our wealth is the reward of our diligence. Let us stand firm in our faith, set goals, and keep going, my son. With faith in God's will. Love, your father. The 16th letter, Don't Make Excuses. April 15, 1906. Dear John. Captain Schofield lost again, and in anger, he threw his beautiful golf club into the air, and he had to buy a new one. Honestly, I like the captain's personality more. The goal of struggle in life is to win, and the same is true of playing. So, I'm going to buy him a new club. Hopefully, it won't be seen as a reward for his tantrums. Otherwise, I'll be miserable if he gets out of control. Captain Schofield also has a commendable advantage. Although losing will make him unhappy, he believes that winning itself is not everything, and how to win is the most important thing. So after losing, he never makes excuses. In fact, he could have justified his loss by saying, "I'm too old and not in good physical strength," but he never did. In my opinion, excuses are a kind of mental illness, and people with this serious illness are all losers without exception. Of course, most people also have some mild symptoms, but the more successful a person is, the less excuses he will make. The biggest difference between those who are prosperous and those who do nothing is the excuse. Just pay attention, and you'll find that people who don't do anything and don't plan to do anything often have a bunch of excuses explaining why they don't do it, why they can't do it. The first action of a loser before his death is to find various reasons for his failure. I despise those who are good at making excuses, because it is the behavior of cowards. And I also sympathize with those who are good at making excuses, because making excuses is a source of failure. Once a loser finds a good excuse, he will hold on to it and then always use this excuse to explain to himself and others why he can't go on, why he can't succeed. At first, he may know that his excuse is more or less a lie. But after many uses, he becomes more and more convinced that it is completely true. That excuse is the real reason for his failure. As a result, his brain starts to be lazy and rigid, and the motivation to work hard to find a way to win is zero. But they are never willing to admit that they are excuse people. Occasionally, I have seen someone stand up and say, "I succeeded by my own efforts." So far, I have never seen any man or woman who dares to stand up and say, "I'm the one who made me fail." Losers have a bunch of excuses for being losers. They blame their failure on family, personality, age, environment, time, skin color, religion, people, and even astrology. And the worst excuses are health, intelligence, and luck. The most common excuses are health reasons. A sentence, "I'm not in good health," or "I'm sick in one way or another," becomes a reason not to do anything or to fail. In fact, no one is completely healthy, and everyone has some physical problems. Many people succumb to this excuse in whole or in part, except those who are determined to succeed. Mr. Gates once introduced me to a college professor who unfortunately lost an arm. But like every optimist I have ever known, he was always smiling and always helping others. Talking about his disability that day, he said, "Of course, 2 arms are better than 1. But only my arm was removed, and my mind is 100% intact and normal. It's to be thankful for that." There's an old saying, "I have been annoyed with my broken shoes until I met a man without feet." It's better to be happy with your health than to complain about the discomfort. Being grateful for the health you have can effectively prevent many diseases. I often remind myself that it is better to be exhausted than to let it go. Life is for us to enjoy. If we waste time worrying about our health and really want to get sick, that is truly a misfortune. The excuse, "I'm not smart enough," is also very common. Nearly 95% of people have this problem, but with a completely different manifestation. This excuse is different in that it is usually silent. People don't openly admit that they're not smart enough, but they think deeply in their minds. I find that most people have 2 fundamental misconceptions: underestimating their own intelligence and overestimating the brain power of others. Because of these mistakes, many people despise themselves. They are reluctant to face challenges, which require considerable intelligence. People who think they are stupid are really stupid. They should know that if one values intelligence and has the courage to try, then one can do well. I think what really matters is not how much intelligence you have, but how you use the intelligence you already have. To be a good businessman, you don't need agility, you don't need an amazing memory. The only key to being at the top of the school is to have a strong interest and enthusiasm. For business, interest and enthusiasm are important factors in determining success or failure. The results of everything are often proportional to our enthusiasm. Enthusiasm can make things a 100 times, a 1,000 times better. Many people don't know what enthusiasm is. The so-called enthusiasm is a wonderful thing. I believe that a person of average intelligence, who has an optimistic, positive, and cooperative attitude towards life, will make more money and gain more respect than a person of intelligence, who is pessimistic, passive, and uncooperative. Whether a person faces small tasks, trivial, arduous tasks, or important plans, as long as he is dedicated and enthusiastic in completing them, the results will be much better than those who are smart but lazy. Because concentration and persistence account for 95% of a person's ability. Some people always lament, "Why do so many smart people fail?" If an extremely smart person always uses their amazing brain power to prove why things cannot work out, instead of using their intelligence to find various ways to succeed, then the fate of failure will find them. Negative thoughts drag on their minds, preventing them from doing their best and accomplishing nothing. If they can change their mentality, I believe they will do many great things. A brain that wants to achieve great things but doesn't know how to think, it is just a bucket of cheap glue. The way of thinking that guides us to develop our strengths is much more important than our intellectual level. Even a high level of education cannot change the basic rule of success. Education and innate intelligence are not the real reasons for good or bad performance, but the management of ideas. Many people believe that the saying, "knowledge is power." In my opinion, this sentence is only half right. Those who use lack of intelligence as an excuse also misunderstand the meaning of the sentence. Knowledge is only a potential power, and its power can only be manifested when knowledge is used and applied constructively. At Standard Oil, there will never be an employee like a living dictionary, because I don't need an expert who can only remember and doesn't know how to think. I want people who can really solve problems, who can come up with all kinds of ideas, who have dreams and the courage to realize them. Creative people can make money for me, people who can only memorize data cannot. A person who does not use intelligence as an excuse will never underestimate his own intelligence nor overestimate the intelligence of others. He focuses on using his assets and discovering the great talents he possesses. He knows that what really matters is not how much intelligence he has, but how he uses what he has and how he uses his intellectual power. He will often remind himself, "My mentality is more important than my intelligence." He has a strong desire to develop an "I will win" attitude. He knows to use his ingenuity to be actively creative, to find ways to succeed, not to prove that he will fail. He also knows that thinking is more valuable than memory. He uses his mind to create and develop new ideas, find new and better ways to do things, and remind himself at all times, "I am creating history with my mind," or just recording history created by others. Everything happens for a reason, and human encounters cannot happen by chance. Therefore, many people always blame their failures on bad luck, and when they see others succeed, they think it is because they are lucky. I never believe in good or bad luck, except that I think careful planning and action create luck. If luck decides who does what, every business will fall apart. Assuming that Standard Oil is reorganized purely by luck, the names of all the company's employees would be put into a vat, and the first name drawn is the president, the second is the vice president, and so on. Funny, right? But that's a function of luck. I never succumb to luck. I believe in the law of cause and effect. Look at those who seem lucky, and you'll see that it's not luck but preparation, planning, and positive thinking that bring beauty to them. Look at those unlucky people, and you'll see there are clear reasons behind it. Successful people can face setbacks, learn from failures, and create new opportunities. The mediocre are often discouraged by this. A person cannot succeed by luck, but only through hard work. I don't want to rely on luck to win and get other good things in life. So I focus on developing myself and developing the qualities that make me a winner. Excuses keep most people from success. 99% of failures are due to people's habit of making excuses. So to pursue a successful career, one of the most important steps is to prevent yourself from making excuses. Love, your father. Knowledge is only potential power. Action is real power. If you are prepared to act, declare, "I am ready," in the comments. If you found value in this video, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe to unlock the wisdom from the next letters. Are you brave enough to hear the truth? I'll see you there.